Task number 4 installation. This is where we left off in the previous video. So let me minimize that. Now the attack box already has Burp Suite installed, so please feel free to skip this task if you do not intend to use it locally. Well, locally speaking, I do have it installed over here, so if we need it, I'm just gonna start it out. So let's see. Is one of the tools that's very useful to have around whether you're explicitly assessing a web or mobile application for a pen test. It's a little bit trickier to set it up for a mobile application, but I think that's what actually, so for someone who is in bug bounties, which I'm currently not, and I keep saying this, for someone who's into bug bounties, this is actually a very good stuff to focus on, or a very good thing to focus on for the mobile applications, because not a lot of people actually go through the hurdle of setting it up, as they say here, for a pen test / bug bounty, or are simply wanting to debug a new feature in a web app you are developing. For this reason, it is important to know how to install. It's just, I mean, the installation can be done by a 3-year-old. So Portsfigure have made installing extremely easy on Linux, Mac OS, and Windows, providing dedicated installers for all three. So you just run the installer and boom, you have it. Burp Suite comes pre-packaged with Kali Linux, and on that matter I should say that I have stopped using Kali Linux, Parrot OS, and all those jazzes maybe at the beginning of 2021, I believe. So it's more than a year ago, close to 2 years. I've stopped using this sort of stuff, this sort of distribution, because it's too much. I don't need that. I don't need a distribution with hundreds or even thousands of tools that I'm never gonna use. For example, when I'm doing pen testing, most of my projects, if they involve web applications, 80% of the testing is done inside Burp Suite. Then the rest of them is just manually reconning, reviewing, reading source code, analyzing stuff, and that's it. You don't have to overcomplicate things like you see in the movies. For some reason Burp is missing from your Kali installation. Ooh, you can easily install it from the Kali app repositories. For other systems, just like that. So we're probably gonna skip over through this one. The installation wizard is very intuitive. If you have chosen not to use the attack box, make sure that you have a copy of it installed before we proceed. Now the dashboard. Let's see, when we open Burp Suite and have accepted the terms, this window doesn't give us many options in Burp Community. Burp Pro would allow us to save our work to the disk. So let me just fire it up to show you what we're talking about here. Do a temporary project, use the defaults, and then we start it. Let me also make sure that this is recording. Alright. Thus, back in here, Burp Pro would allow us to save our work to the disk or load a previously saved project at this point, and all we can do here is click next. Now in this situation, as you can see, if we look at the project, we have the save copy in this case, and we can save the copy of the project, and then we can just load project options or import. Like when you start Burp, you have the option to import a project or just load a project, and that's when we load our saved copy. The first time you open it, you may be presented with a screen of training options. These are well worth the time. So this is what we have in here in the dashboard. That's the dashboard. Let me tell you what I like to do. So I also have the autorize here, which I use sometimes, as I've said yesterday in the video about application security verification standard access controls, verifying access controls. I said that I'm using autorize when I'm lazy and I'm on a deadline and I want to actually increase the chances of successful or successful findings. So I usually reorganize this because I want to keep everything fluid. I could just save my entire configuration into a configuration file. So user option, I would save user options, but what I generally do is I reorganize these tabs over here. So I put the intruder after the repeater, then I put authorize after the repeater. So I have dashboard, target, proxy, repeater, authorize, intruder. Then I have decoder and comparer because I use comparer a lot, and the rest remain as they are. So dashboard, target, proxy, repeater, authorize. So it's not authorized but authorize. Intruder, decoder, comparer. Right. Don't be alarmed. In short, the dashboard interface is split into 4 quadrants. We have the live task. So on the dashboard you have the live task, and you can define a new live task or a new scan, which I usually don't scan. Like 90% of the situations I do not scan. You also have the findings here. You also have the event log and the advisory. So if you click on a finding, for example, if you find something, you click on a finding, you'll have the advisory for that specific finding. The task menu allows us to define. You have the live passive crawl over here, which is always run. When you start Burp Suite, it's already in there, but you can pause it or you can just delete it. Live audit from proxy, all traffic. That's it. So the advisory is, as I said, if you click on something over here, the advisory is going to be populated with information regarding that specific thing. Throughout the various tabs, you will find little help icons and question marks, like for example on this one, and if you click on it, you're gonna have a burp documentation.local. It's going to be populated with documentation on the specific thing that you have. So if you're stuck at some point and you find a question mark within a circle, you can just click on it and see what it is all about. Burp Suite, so these are extremely helpful. This is the dashboard. Open and have a look around the dashboard. Make sure that you are comfortable with it before moving on. So to re-emphasize on the fact that I'm doing these videos not to actually add to the spam of other people who've posted walkthroughs for these rooms, but to actually add my own insight as I did so far and what I'm actually doing from my penetration testing experience. Again, not to spam or to actually do copy-paste videos of other people going through these walkthroughs. That being said, let's just click on completed. And if you find these videos useful, do actually share them around, because that's gonna tell me that you're interested, and that's actually gonna motivate me to keep moving forward. Because if these videos get very few views or don't get any views at all, I'm just gonna stop making it, because this is actually an investment of my free time when I could actually do something else, such as study or get better or improve my skills. Alright, so navigation, really important. Navigation, you have all of these sections on top over here, and as you keep on, for example, adding more extensions from the BAP store, your navigation is going to expand. So if I would install Hunt Scanner here, let's actually do it. Hunt Scanner, it's actually gonna appear here once it's installed, as you can see. What I can do now is go into the extensions and then remove it. It's gonna disappear. These allow you to switch between modules. If the selected module has one more than one subtab, then these can be selected using a second menu for. So for example, in the repeater here, when you have something sent to the repeater from proxy, for example, or from target, you would just, it would automatically be in a sub task here with a number, and those numbers, if you fill it all the way up to here, maybe let's say 30, the next one is going to be on a row below. Tabs can be popped out into separate windows, so really important. This is all about navigating in the Burp suite. Control-Shift-D sends stuff to the switch to the dashboard. Really interesting. I didn't know that. I thought it was the decoder. Control-Shift-T switch to the target tab. Control-Shift-P to the proxy. Shift-I. Control-Shift-R switch to the repeater. Now, for example, when you're actually doing something, let me open up an incognito window, Firefox. New private window. For example, go to google.com. You can just send stuff to the repeater with Control R. You can just right click and send stuff with Control R. So you have two ways. Right click, send to the repeater, and then the keyboard combination Control R. I'm just mixing up the science here. Control R, Control Shift R, switch to the repeater, Control R, send to the repeater. Alright, options. Really important, before we start learning about the proxy, let's take a look at the options available for configuring. And also let us make sure that 12 minutes. We're gonna keep this under 15. Before we start learning, global settings can be found in the user options. So we have the user options here. Have the global settings. I don't mess around with them a lot. Project specific settings can be found in the projects options. So aside of one another. The options provided in the user option will apply every time we open Burp Suite. In contrast, the projects options will only apply to the current project. Given that we can't save projects in the community, this means that our project options will reset every time we close Burp, which is why it's best, if you're a professional, to buy the professional edition, of course. There are far too many options to cover, so let's just look at the available categories and highlight a few. So, to be completely honest and transparent, I don't mind with these ones. So we are under connections, platform authentication. You could just override, but I don't do that. Upstream proxy servers, if you want to select those. SOX proxies. Now the settings apply globally. That said, many of them can be overridden, as you've seen here. Override user options, override user options, and override user options. Connections allows us to control how Burp makes connections to the targets. We can set a proxy for Burp Suite to connect through. This is very useful if you want to use it through a network pivot, which is really important. So the connection would go from Burp through the proxy or the network pivot. The TLS allows us to enable various or disable various transport layer security options, as well as giving us a place to upload client certificates. An essential set of options. Display allows us to change. Now this is something that I do change. in the user options display, as you can see, my font size, I don't think this is the default. My font size is 13 and the theme is light, and I use monospace for message display, 14 points. That's what I actually do. I believe the other ones have remained the defaults. The MISC contains a wide variety of settings, including the key binding tables. So if you're a shortcut person, you could just define key bindings here. Send to the repeater, Control R. Send to the comparer, Control I. Send to comparer. Let's edit a hotkey. What would send to the comparer be? None. How do you define it? You probably define it by just clicking on it and then saying Control W or Control D or Control C, which is a duplicate, or Control F or Control T or Control U or Control K. Send to comparer would be Control K. Send request to comparer, send response to comparer. I just right click and then send it to the comparer. But for example, if you want to remove that, how do you remove it? That's a good question. Cancel. Alright. Going back in here, project specific options. So connections, many of the same options to the ones in the user option. So for the project specific ones, as we've said, you have the overriding ones. In this HTTP tab, I think everything is left by default. TLS, we have the certificates, server TLS certificates. You have from the browsers and the certificates that you defined yourself or that you've imported yourselves. TLS allows us to override application-wide options, as well as showing us a list of public server certificates that we have visited. Of course, the session tab provides us with options for handling sessions. So everything is by default. It also allows us to define macros, which we can use to automate things such as logging into web applications, and so on and so forth. There are a few options in the MISC sub-tab than in the equivalent tab for user option sections. Many of these options are also only available if you have access to the Burp Pro. Alright. Change the Burp to change the theme to the dark mode, so we would do that from user options, display, theme dark, and it's actually going to be applied, I believe, not instantly, but after we start Firefox, or instantly. Alright. Completed. In which project option subtab can you find reference to a cookie jar? Is it in the project options session, in the sessions? In which user option subtab can you change the update behavior? I don't know that. Let's actually see. MISC updates. So it's in the MISC. What is the name of the section within user option MISC which allows you to change key bindings? So that's hotkeys, right? Which is right at the top, hotkeys. If we have uploaded client-side TLS certificates in the user option, can we overwrite these on a per project basis? IA nay. So client-side TLS certificates, we are in the project option, override user options, yes. So IA. There are many more configuration options available. Take the time to read them through. In the next section we will cover the proxy. So the proxy is task number 8, which is really important, and probably we're actually gonna do more hands-on in this task number 8. Let's see. 20 minutes. So that being said, task number 8 is going in the next video.